So excited to be here and also very excited that I get to go first because the three people following me are just incredible and going to blow everyone out of the water. So I'm Addie Bateman. I am currently working for an organization called Uncharted. I am a Mines graduate. I graduated in 2019 in the spring with my bachelor's in mechanical engineering with a minor in humanitarian engineering. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay, but let me know if I should talk louder. So excited to be here. So Uncharted is the organization I currently work for. I'm a program associate there. And what we do is we are what's called the Social Impact Accelerator. So we run programs that are geared towards social entrepreneurs and really giving them the resources that they need to help their organization grow. And so we're looking mostly in the social impact sector. And so people who, a lot of nonprofits generally apply to our programs, and we get to give them access to mentors, to funders, to whatever else they need to really help scale up their impact. So it was kind of a weird journey for me to get into this organization. I actually worked for Uncharted as an intern my freshman year of college and absolutely loved them. And when I graduated, they were kind of like my dream company. Didn't think it was going to happen, and worked in the biomedical field actually for a while, which I loved, but I was always kind of missing that social side and always kind of itching to get back out there. And so when I heard of a job opening in Uncharted, some of my old contacts reached out to me and kind of stumbled into this position. So I've been working here since February, so about 10 months now. But during 2020, it feels like 10 years. So excited to be here. Yeah, let me know whatever questions you have.
Thank you, Addie. That's super. And next, I'd like to introduce Jackie Haney.
Okay, good. Sorry. Had to unmute my audio there. Good evening, everybody. My name's Jackie Haney. Excited to be here today and share this time with my fellow panelists as well. I graduated from Mines in 2001 with a degree in chemical engineering and have worked in the oil and gas industry my entire career, actually. Worked for Shell and ExxonMobil originally out of school, and both international projects and projects here in the United States, both offshore in the Gulf of Mexico and here onshore in the United States. But essentially over my career, I went not only from very, very large multi-country organizations and also working in a very technical role as an engineer, but to now starting Union Rock's predecessor in 2014. And being on my own for overall the past 8 years with being a consultant prior to that, and really moving smaller and smaller over time as well. But Union Rock now is an investment firm in upstream oil and gas energy projects, and happy to talk about how I got to this point here, but excited to be here tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jackie. And Theresa.
Hey everybody, I'm Theresa Johnson. I earned both a bachelor's in geological engineering and a master's in geology and geochemistry from Mines. I started an online apparel and home decor company, Terra Persona, in 2017 with another Mines alumna, Mandy Hutchinson. Let's see, the idea for Terra Persona began late one night in the microscope lab on 4th floor Berthoud while we were finishing a class project. We were talking about how we wanted to capture the view of the rocks that we were studying under the microscope and then print that onto art to hang on the wall or turn into clothing. Well, the idea stuck, and we pushed each other as we were finishing writing our thesis. We were pushing each other, and we take procrastination breaks and just start figuring out how we were going to turn this idea into a viable business. It worked. We finished our master's and we started a business. All of Terra Persona designs are images of rocks under the microscope. Fossils, meteorite, semi-precious stones, and sometimes just some cool rocks I pick up while hiking. So the microscopic images are printed onto the textiles and then are turned into pillows, towels, scarves, leggings, and a lot more. Mandy left Terra Persona in early 2019 to fully pursue her and her husband's mineral business, Alta Gemma. You can find them on Facebook. It's a lot of fun stuff that they have. Now as the sole proprietor, I refocused Terra Persona to be, in addition to selling products, but a platform for science communication. by featuring the research of geoscientists, mainly women, in the products that I make. So the first of these designs was a metamorphic rock from New England in the Appalachians that the mines professor, Yvette Cooper, and her grad student, Emily Gentry, they completed research on. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'm wearing the scarf that has their design on it. It's a metamorphic schist. I won't get too geology geeky here, I promise. Anyway, I'm really passionate about this new venture with the geoscientists and highlighting their research. And I have a lot more featured geoscientists coming up in the pipeline. As for the business side of Terra, it's a dropship company, which means that I take the images of the rocks under the microscope and I design the products with pre-made templates. And then a manufacturing company takes those designs and prints, sews and ships the products to my customers on demand. So I'm not required to have inventory. As with anything, there's pros and cons to this business model. So obvious pro, I don't have to deal with production and shipping, and I can focus on the designs and just like the everyday business aspects like accounting or web design, which takes a lot of my time. It's low risk because I don't have to hold inventory. I just carry some for different shows or conferences that I attend. And it allows me to bootstrap it and not take out any loans. So it's fairly easy to get into. And a lot of artists do this, whether they're taking photographs or making their own art. Cons, my profit margin is much lower because I'm not purchasing large quantities at wholesale prices. And, I don't have to have the same level of input into what type of products and specific styles are being offered by that manufacturer. But for me, this works. My husband and I have been digital nomads for the past 3 years, and we have a home base here in Colorado. We travel and work whenever we can. Obviously, 2020 has kept us at home. But having a dropship business as a passive source of income, it allows me the flexibility to work when and where it fits in my life. I look forward to talking with you all more and hearing from these other great panelists. Thanks.
That's great, Theresa. And you were a digital nomad before it was cool. Now, like everybody's doing.
Yeah. Well, it had kind of started, but my husband has been working from at home because he's a computer guy for probably the past. Well, actually, he started working from at home when I started going to mines because we had kids, and it was really like the only feasible way for us to make it work if he was going to be there to be there for the kids. So.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And Sue McFadden, I'd like you to give a few minutes to introduce yourself as well.
Great. Well, I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I'm going to try to show you all the different pivots that I did in my life to get there. But hopefully you'll see a lot of opportunity in my story and know that you have a lot of opportunity in your stories. So I graduated from Columbine High School, and then I went to the second best engineering school up the road in Boulder. And I had a summer internship at NIST in 1982, which was in the depth of the recession. And so I was super lucky to have a job when I graduated. And we did natural gas research for the oil and gas industry. And I was able to travel the world. And the fun thing was there was many mines professors at NIST. And so they encouraged me to go to mines and get my master's at the same time when I was working. And so in 1986, I earned a master's in chemical and petroleum refining from mines. And then I got pregnant with my first child, and I thought, oh, I want to get an MBA because I was getting much more into management and project management. But a wise mines professor said to me, if you want to be a manager, you get an MBA, but if you want to be a CEO, you get an economics degree. And so I went into the mineral economics department at Mines and got a free ride to do a PhD, which was a really great opportunity. And economics turned out to be my passion. It gave me this tool that I could analyze the world with, and it was just wonderful. I really enjoyed that time. So during that time, I had another baby, and my dissertation was on sustainable growth in the oil and gas industry. We had reciprocity with the University of Denver at the time, so I could study both finance and economics. And when I graduated in 1991, I went to teach at DU and had my third child, a son. And so we were set. We had insurance, we had 401k, the schooling was all over and a stable job. And so I thought life was really great. My former husband, who's also a Mines graduate, is an air quality expert. And so with the DU benefits, we thought we could go out on our own and start our own company in air quality. And we did that. And we had offices in 4 states, and we were pretty successful for 20 years, thanks to great employees like Don Culley was one of our rock stars that's on this call with us here today. And Dawn's turned out to be a very successful entrepreneur herself. So it's really fun to see the generational handoff here. But then later I took my youngest daughter to college at University of Montana, and we went through Glacier National Park. And the park ranger told us that there was 160 glaciers, and now they're down to 16 glaciers. And then by the end of the decade, it would be glacierless national park. And we were like, what is causing this? And he said, it's this thing called climate change. You know, we're putting too much CO2 into the atmosphere. And we were like, whoa, this is terrible. And so this is my big sustainability aha moment that changed my life. And I knew at the time that we were an oil and gas company and we were adding to this problem. So I came back and I started a company called 7 Generations, and it's based on the Iroquois Indian philosophy that the decisions we make today affect the next 7 generations. So we need to make good decisions today. So 7 Generations is a green building development company. We built the first LEED office park in Northern Colorado. We built the first zero energy residential development in Northern Colorado. It's 68 homes that are all powered by solar and geothermal energy. We put more energy on the grid than we take off, and we have no natural gas at all. So we've won the Department of Energy's Housing Innovation Award from 2016 to 2019. And in 3 of those years, we won the grand prize for the entire nation. My son graduated from college, thank you, and he wanted to get into real estate. So we started a real estate brokerage company so that we could sell the homes in these. So if you see all these businesses are just happen because there's a need out there. And so we just keep creating more and more businesses. Now I work on policy at the state and local level on energy efficiency, affordable housing, and climate change. The UN says we have 10 years to reverse the trajectory on climate change. So there is nothing more important to me right now, and that's what I focus all my time on. What I want to leave you with is a story of the Vedic witches, purpose and prosperity. They say if you chase prosperity, you'll never catch her. But if you chase purpose, prosperity will always be right behind. So that's what I want you to remember. Thanks for listening to my story.
That's fantastic. And thank you all. So it's just, I love the diversity in the mix we have here. We do have somebody who kind of bombed our Zoom thing, which is so cool because I don't even believe this person has any time to do something like this. So I would just like to recognize Dr. Johnson, who joined our Zoom call today, or Zoom event today. If you'd like to say a few words, we're really happy to have you here, and we've got an incredible lineup of women we'd like to share with you.
Great, thanks, Melanie. Hey, everybody, happy holidays. I hope you're all doing well. I am sort of Zoom bombing in between preparing for tomorrow's graduation event, which it's going to be a lot of fun, I think. But I want to thank all of you for participating in this, Melanie and others who organized it. I think this is a great topic. We need to do more of this at Mines. We need to introduce more of our students to these opportunities, you know, for their career paths. And I think the only way they can ever figure out how something like this happens is to listen to all of your experiences, and because they're all very different from each other. There's obviously no one formula, but I think you've all had very, very rewarding times in the things that you've explored, and I think our students and future graduates could as well. So thanks all for doing this, and I hope we do it more and more and more to even, you know, bigger audiences, and figure out how to reach them with recordings like this as well. That's the cool thing about doing things virtually, is we then have a recording we can share with our classes, for example. So anyway, thanks so much for doing this. Happy holidays. And let's all hope for a great 2021.
Is it here yet?
And I'll be hanging in, listening to this. So thanks so much.
With that, Paul, I would like to invite you, if you would like to, we have a number of questions already set to ask. If you have anything at the top of your mind you would like to kick us off with, to ask our panelists and with regard to entrepreneurship, how they got into it, why they got into it, you're welcome to be the first person to start.
So I think, yeah, so actually I do have one question. And I'm always curious about this one when it comes to people who are very entrepreneurial. And I tend to ask this question from the perspective of like, what was I thinking when I was in college? And when I look, and experiences that I've had with working with students, and that is, you know, basically how many of you would have identified yourself as entrepreneurial when you were in college, right? Did you sort of think that you were, or was it sort of circumstances that created a situation in which the only way you were going to be able to pursue something that you were passionate about or interested in was to be entrepreneurial? Because I think there's this notion that people are sort of either like born, or there's something innate that you can identify about yourself early on that you know you are. And I've known quite a few people who are very successful entrepreneurs who never would have self-selected, but because of sort of some situation in life, be realized about themselves that they could be very successful in an entrepreneurial and innovative way. So anyway, that's a very long-winded question, but I'm very curious in your answers to that.
Panelists, feel free to chime in, whoever wants to answer.
I'll start. I definitely was not an entrepreneur, but I had always held management type roles. And so I think being a leader is a big part of it, but I don't think it's necessary. So simple as that, I guess.
Yeah, I'll jump in and agree to that. Mine was more circumstantial as well. You know, I think at the time it was more, you know, I had children, and it was a time management and what sort of impact am I making, and what could I do to share my time between my family and also not, you know, but still make an impact. And so at the time I went out on my own, it was to be a consultant and help people with specific needs. And so I could manage that time a bit better. But it actually went into more of recognizing that in my specific industry that there needs to be a change. And so, you know, it was to then generate a firm that starts to help facilitate that change from what's, you know, has gone on historically in the past. So definitely more circumstantial.
Very good. I have a follow-up to that. If there's not another, someone who else wants to answer from the first question.
I can just chime in just a little bit more. And so I recognize I'm coming from a different perspective in the fact that I'm not myself an entrepreneur, though I do have the opportunity to work with a lot of them every day. And I think what I've noticed is that entrepreneurship is kind of like a superpower that you almost need to unlock with a certain amount of pressure on you. And so to me, engineers are like really well set up to be really successful entrepreneurs because we are put under pressure so often, and we can kind of balance all of those different pieces of life. You just need to be passionate about something that you want to change. And so like a lot of the reason that I kind of took the pivot away from engineering and into the program that I'm in right now is because it's like a recognition of what I think the world needs and where I can contribute the most to, which I think like mine's taught me a lot of, and I'm coming from like only a year post-grad. So that teaches me a lot, like just in classes of like, how do you recognize what problems are out there and how do you feel the power that engineering can give you or that your education can give you in order to want to change something.
There's a book out there right now. I haven't read it. It's on strategic innovation, and it's all about this. Is it innate or nature nurture to be an entrepreneur? You know, do you have it in your blood? And I think some people do have it in their DNA that they can be innovative and see this purpose out there that they have to go after, whereas other people are really, I think it takes a certain personality to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone can do it.
That's good. I've been taking notes because there's such great nuggets in this. So I'm glad we're recording. So I guess I don't need to take notes. A question that we were discussing with the committee who helped kind of coordinate with this tonight is, there's a number of things that led to your success. But if you had to pinpoint one or two things that kind of led you down the path that you went into, people, place, person, thing, what would be the one or two key successes that led you down this path? Or rather elements rather than successes, yeah.
I think identifying a need that's unmet, and you have this purpose that this need needs to be met, like climate change or something like that. It really drives you and gets you to assemble a high performance team that can meet the need.
It sounds what I hear what you say, there's something about passion in that need. By having that, because anyone can see a need, and to actually go to the next step takes something a little bit extra, yeah?
Probably.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's also, seeing that it can be done. So it's having the right mentors and having the right folks that can help guide you and give you advice along the way, and having those resources and that network to reach out to, and knowing that your willingness to fail. No one likes to fail, but I think that's how entrepreneurs ultimately reach their success, is dealing with that failure, working through that failure, and then pursuing, or I guess getting better as a result of that.
Very good. A follow-up to that I'd like to ask each of you really is around, you just kind of laid it out there for us, Jackie, is, certainly not all your attempts that you've done in the past, succeeded. And so on the first try. So how did you deal with setbacks in specific?
Well, I'll jump in since I kind of threw a softball there. I think the very first major failure that I had after going out on my own, it was hard to swallow. Not only because of the capital intensive nature of what I do, but also because of the reputational nature of what I do as well in our industry. And so, it was hard to work through, but ultimately in hindsight, it was invaluable experience. And so, it's learning not to quit, to persevere and to learn ultimately in my experience.
Thank you.
Can I say it's just brutal? I mean, failure is not fun, and you just really need to find it in your will, and hopefully be surrounded by people that also have the same passion to pull you back up. It's not fun.
What comes to mind to a question for you, Theresa, is being that your partner just left Terra Persona, and you've obviously had to kind of, it's not just about the cool things you see through rocks. You have to actually get the product on something, send it out, and there's a lot of mechanics that go behind that. So in terms of doing that, how do you balance the risk, like of doing that, going out on your own? And this applies to everyone really, but going out on your own, how do you balance that with family, with financial, risk as well? How do you put all that together? How do you keep moving the ball forward?
Oh, it's a incredible challenge. And there's not like one answer to that one for sure. For anybody, it's different. You know, I'm also an independent contractor still. That's where, you know, the majority of my income comes into place. And so unfortunately, when I'm spending more time doing that contracting, then my Terra Persona work gets, you know, pushed aside. But the way I have Terra Persona set up, I'm able to have that flexibility to go back and forth. And I think that was the key thing for me, is to be able to go in there and be able to have that flexibility. But as far as it's just it's a constant juggle day by day, to be honest. I mean, just because just different things come up when you have different failures. I mean, whether it's technology, we were getting ready to launch the website for the first time on, I think it was the Gem and Mineral Show in Denver in 2017. And the night before, we're getting ready, everything is set up, and the e-commerce platform that we're using changed the way plugins work. And then all of a sudden, everything that we had done to connect all of the products into our website didn't work. So what are we going to do? You know, we'd already been advertising. And so, you know, it was an all-nighter, and we found a workaround, and it was ugly and we weren't happy about it, but we wanted to show up. And so we had to make that decision. There's a saying I'm trying to think of, I think it's the LinkedIn founder who basically said, you know, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. You know, in this case, there was other problems involved, but, you know, we just tried to embrace that and said, you know, at least we're there, we're going to keep working on it, improving it. So there's all those kinds of challenges about failing quickly, get back into it, you know, reevaluate, what are you going to do differently? But it's hard, period.
And can I just say also, I think we can all identify amongst us panelists that, you know, that failure is not a new thing. I think we can all remember the first, you know, organic chemistry or physics exam that we were in on, and, you know, instead of getting, you know, straight A's or A's and B's, you know, you get that first D, and you think, do I even belong here? And, you know, how do I continue? And so we're not, it's not a new experience. And once you start to relate your mind's experience to what, you know, you take out of minds and put into business, then you start to realize, wait, I actually have already built these tools and capacities when I was at Minds.
I'd love to jump on that a little bit, because I think, and panelists, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, it also, that failure just makes it a little bit more heartbreaking when it's something so close, something that you hold really close and dear. Like, I failed plenty of tests, but I wouldn't say that those subjects were like my number one priority all the time. And so to turn around and say like, oh, I'm going to take this risk and I'm going to create this new organization, or I'm going to really pursue my dreams in this one area, there's it's kind of like putting your heart on the line too. And so like getting yourself ready and geared up for that. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, you kind of, everyone has failed at something before. And it's like, yeah, this one might seem bigger from the perspective that you're at right now, but in the future, it'll just be one of those speed bumps that you can get over again. So.
Well, that's great, because one of the things that came to mind when the words all-nighter came out from Theresa, and like Minds, like, do I belong here kind of thing. So having that Minds experience really does set you up for like, you know, knowing what's going to happen in terms of how you deal with failure, so to speak. I have a great question here from Don Coley I'd like to share with you guys. And it's really around, because one of the things we want to get out of today is advice for people who are here, depending on whatever path they're on in their journey, is in this case, you know, for those of you that have employees, do you have any advice for the transition from being the person that does all the work to hiring/managing employees? Because there is a transition there. And have you had to make conscious choice not to grow to a point where you need to hire employees? And just a few thoughts that you might have on that.
Well, I'll jump in, because this is something I'm going through right now, as a matter of fact, is making that transition. And it's hard. You wear so many hats for so long, and you know, so you get used to, being covering the entire field. And when you start to then hire, somebody to cover a specific area of that field and have a specific responsibility, it's a growing experience. It's learning a new skill set for yourself with making that transition. But in terms of advice, while working through that, I would say that we're in the process of putting systems in place, processes in place, really defining what we kind of expect from those employees and how they're going to take over. But we also have to set that up internally for them to have the capacity to take those things over, because for the longest time, everything's right here, so you've got to start to put some of that stuff on paper and really put the infrastructure in place to hire those employees, in addition to it being also an emotional thing to learn to let go of certain responsibilities as well.
I'll chime in here. For me, Dawn was one of my employees, and for 20 years, I was the CFO and the COO and managing people and training people and all of that. And so when I did get out of that business, I have gone strictly to a contractor model so that I don't have any employees, and gives me tons more freedom. And I think I'm far more effective that way. And, people work because they're getting paid, and it just works much better for me and gives me a lot more freedom. So I don't want to have any more employees, but that's probably because I'm old. When you're younger, you're growing your business and maybe you need that.
How does that apply to you, Addie, at Unchartered? I mean, because there's obviously a number of employees there, right?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different, just because I think we all kind of have the track that we're on, and we're working on different programs, working with different entrepreneurs. And I would say kind of like a theme that I've noticed with the entrepreneurs that we work on is that emotional component of holding on to the hundreds of hats that you wear as an entrepreneur. I think when you build something from the ground up, and generally with social entrepreneurship, the person that is that main entrepreneur, that main founder, is that they're really close to the community that this social issue might be impacting. And so I think it makes it all that harder to let go. And so we've had founders that we've kind of had to talk and say, look, you have to start trusting, the 3 other people that you hired, because you can't balance all of this. And so I think it's a really hard thing to have to watch an entrepreneur almost let go of some of their baby, because I think that's exactly what it is like you're kind of raising a child, and to have to say like, okay, you are now in charge of, this component of raising that child with me, and really trusting the people that you hire. And so I think that's like a really big thing, is don't put hiring on the back burner, because you can be hiring your new partner, your new like sidekick in what you're doing. And I think that's so vital to the success of an organization, because if you don't hire and you continue to grow an organization, but it's still just you're going to burn out. And that, I think we are all familiar with burning out. I think we all probably felt it at some point in minds, with just exhaustion, and you can't do your best work under that pressure. And so, yeah, definitely like a common pattern, but also something that I think isn't emphasized as much as like, oh, all I need is funding, all I need is this resource, and that's how I can grow. But really, it's a lot about internal growth too.
So Addie, I'll add on to that in the sense that one takeaway I had before going on my journey was an entrepreneur I used to work for. When I quit that organization, he literally said to me, "Why are you leaving me?" instead of saying, "Why are you leaving this company?" And so at the time, because I hadn't gone out on my own yet, I was thinking, wow, what a very self-centered thing to say. But I've never forgotten that, as to your point about it being even an emotional journey as you build something.
Well, what's interesting when I hear you speak, you guys, there's things that come out for me. It's flexibility. I mean, I'm learning about this. It scares me to be an entrepreneur, because it takes so much inertia. you know, and it's like you have to have so much passion that you will overcome no matter what gets thrown in front of you in terms of obstacles. And in passion, inertia, and flexibility. And those, to me, when I hear you talk, sound to be pretty key traits that one would want to have. What other traits does one need to get you where you've gotten to today, if those aren't the ones?
I think relationships, networks, building high performance teams is the key. You know, I have a PhD and 2 engineering degrees, but my best value is building high performance teams. And that's what's really important. Getting the right people on the bus.
Yeah, so don't ignore what your experience in senior design or epics or whatever those the classes are today, for sure.
One trait that I had to get rid of was my perfectionism. It holds you back. It's just so easy to get stuck in the minutia of things that you never get anywhere. And, you know, I grew up being told, you know, if you're going to do something, make sure you do it right. And yeah, I mean, that there's validity to that. You know, nobody just wants to, I'm not trying to do junk, but you can really get stuck in that, and you really do have to find the middle road. So when you do know you have something that really can hold you back, cause overwhelm, never making a decision. I mean, it really is so essential that you just start. And for me, I had to in my head say, okay, I'm just playing around, but I'm doing something. And then that playing around would inspire me and then get me to go further. So that was something personally that I had to overcome.
I'd love to build off like all of that. Oh, so sorry, Jackie.
No, go ahead, Eddie.
I think like all of that is really important. I also want to emphasize kind of communication and communicating to different audiences. So communicating to your team and like understanding what you're doing in the strategy, back to that delegation piece and making sure that you can share the amount of hats that you're wearing. And then also just communication to the audiences that you might be pitching to, or people that you're trying to get on your side. I think sometimes people with technical backgrounds can struggle with that, and at least that's what we see in a lot of our programs, is how can you get a really clear idea, or how can you get like your dream idea across clearly in a way that makes people want to back you up. And so I definitely think that's something, and I think it's partially confidence, partially presentation style, and then a lot of relationship building there and reading the room. Go ahead, Jackie. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, that's very similar to what I was going to add as well. I mean, oftentimes when you're initially an entrepreneur and going out on your own, you're doing it because of your specific expertise, right? And a specific idea or skill. And what you end up finding is that's actually the first thing that you have to depart from, or at least put on the back burner, so that you can grow your ability to communicate, to convey an idea, oftentimes to people or clients that don't necessarily understand your product or your service right away. And so, you know, whether it's raising capital or it's, you know, going outside of your specific business, you're expanding yourself into new territory and new skill sets and abilities. And you have to be open to that in building those kind of what maybe have been weaknesses previously.
Sue, a follow-up question for you that's come up is how do you build a high performance team? And this applies to the other panelists as well, if it does, but you know, you say that's so important. How do you do that?
It's Peter Senge from MIT has a really great book called Theory U, if you want a good book to read. But it's about finding people with similar passion. They're not about money. They see the same vision that you see, and not to be scared to kick somebody off the bus that isn't on the same line. You know, you really got to carry the torch as far as what the vision is, and get the people on the bus that carry that same torch. And it's amazing the extraordinary results that you can get out of it if you have a high performance team. But that's the key thing for an entrepreneur is finding that group that's going to get you there.
Well, it sounds like, Sid, you have a whole class on this. So we can always go back to school one day, right? To learn more.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I would love to have as many of you actually pop into my classes. I've had Jackie and I've had Addie was a mentor in my class for a short period of time, but Jackie came in and wowed the class. And in fact, we need more of you to come into our classes.
Sid, I think I learned more from your students than I thought that I imparted, but I very much appreciate it and would love to do it again.
They're so humble. They loved you. I mean, I cannot, and the thing is, I need more examples like you. Like we need more women in my classes. I just had I have to plug in my course or put a plug for my course. InnovateX is the new course I'm teaching, which is like based on hacking for defense and innovating and doing all this entrepreneurial stuff that you guys are talking about. But this last semester, I had 3 out of 17 who were women. And I made sure that each one of them was assigned to a separate team. And my God, they made a huge difference. The teams did so much better because they had them on. So I'm glad we're putting this on. We should do more of this.
We will.
Standard & Poor's or NASDAQ has now new rules that if you don't have 2 women on your board, that you're going to get delisted from the stock exchange. That's pretty significant.
It's about time.
And it shows the value of having women on.
Yeah. But you're right. So we offer classes, as you all know, that have, deal with leadership. We talk about, actually Sophia was in my management of technology class. We talked about how do you make decisions related to innovation and the risks you take, and how do you assess whether you should do it or not, and just about everything related to managing innovation. And then we have the leading high-performing teams, and that's another fun class that we just wrapped up that I wish all of you were speakers in, because you just have no idea how people come into the class thinking that, oh, leadership is this something that, you talk about only if you're someone famous or someone who's done something important in life. But by the end of the class, I have many of them just talk about their individual stories of how they led some change, no matter how small. And then you find out, wow, there's leaders all over the class. Everybody's a leader. They just didn't know it. And so it's not one trait or one personality, but it's quite a bit. And then it certainly applies to entrepreneurship, because you have to lead a small team to do something unbelievable, like launch a new product or a service. And then you have to convince people to actually buy it or use it. That's leadership.
And the resources available to, your students today, are the ability to communicate or get a message out there in a much more prolific way, is dramatically changed even in the last, 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And one way I really like to do that is to get some of you or all of you, as many of you as possible, involved in the class. Because, for me to tell them it's possible, I think somebody mentioned that earlier in the chat, it's one thing. But if I actually say, hey, here's Addie, she did this, or here's Jackie, she started a company or a fund, at the worst time in the economy, in a, male-dominated, industry, and sometimes I say, would you give a person a chance if they were this, this, and that, and this industry? And most of them, no, they have no chance. Well, here's Jackie, she did it. And so we need to be able to point to examples. Nothing is more powerful than having them relate to you all personally.
That's fantastic. What I'd like to hear is what advice do you have for the alumni on this call or this Zoom, if they want to deepen their skill set in entrepreneurial, or what is it that they would need to do? What next step would you recommend that they do if they wanted to deepen their skill set? First,
I would be glad to share with you Zoom logins to any of my classes, and you can crash anytime you want to, because I'm sure that would be not only an opportunity for you to get the latest and greatest that we teach, but also to contribute, because a lot of these classes it's not a one-way street. Like, the old days when you lecture and people just sit there and, take notes, those are gone. Our classes are, at least my classes are the flipped classroom kind of class where it's engagement time. People come prepared to discuss. They read all the readings in advance, hopefully, as much as they can, but they come into the class ready to talk about it. So it's going to break up into groups and talk and discuss and engage. And that's where the real learning takes place. And so having you in the class would be phenomenal. I have, a ton of mentors I try to bring into every class. It's been harder this semester, but I think we managed to pull it off.
Well, we're going to hold you to that, Sid, and we're going to send out to the people on the call today your Zoom links for the next semester. So,
please,
any other insights from the panelists to the alumni as well?
Yeah. Hey, I'm taking names. I'm going to expect all of you to attend, to participate. No, hopefully and I'm happy to answer any questions about anything, and at least explore ways you can engage, or it's not one way too. So I want to see, is there any way we can help you back?
Do you do strength finders with your students or Myers-Briggs, and just to find out where they're strong?
Yeah, we cover not only that, but so we have access to personality traits. I talk about awareness. You need to be aware, and part of awareness is to know yourself well. So you have to know, what are you good at, what are you weak at, what are your blind spots, all that stuff. We do the Myers-Briggs as well. So we don't force, but we make it optional. And then what I'm really trying to do now
Strengths and qualities are.
Sorry. Say again, Sue. I think I lost Sue. So we also, one of the things I'm trying to do is implement a 360 sort of assessment where it's not self-described, but it's more where you survey people that you work with to get that sort of a 360 view of yourself, because no matter how good we try to be and how honest we try to be with ourselves and assessing ourselves, we're always going to be biased because we only see one perspective, ours. But actually another, I think it was a Mines alum, and she came and spoke to my class, and I think she's a vice president of Karen Wimlett. I think she told me that she runs that, and she was surprised to find that when she did this, one group in her company absolutely hated her or had some just negative reactions about her. And the 360 assessment helped her figure this out and go out of her way to reach out to that group and build bridges again. So we're trying to do the personal, the Myers-Briggs, and 2 or 3 other ones. Basically, I give the students a long list of things to kind of try.
I do have some advice. For those of you that are just starting to form an idea or might even have an idea and wondering if it's any good, there's a lot of free resources here in Colorado. From the small business development centers, there's through the state, there's local ones, the Chamber of Commerce. Then there's Commons on Champa, which has lots of different classes and mentors there too that maybe specialize in what you're doing. Mi Casa is a low-income or female minority business owners. There's just a lot of great stuff from meetups of women entrepreneurs. There's just a ton of them. Honestly, you could just spend all of your time researching and networking in these ways, and then get some feedback on your ideas, because it definitely helped me try to understand what's feasible. Maybe don't start with that, start with this. So I would definitely recommend reaching out and finding a lot of these free resources are there. And then when you're ready to take that step, like what Addie does with the accelerator programs, there's quite a few of those, and they can really help guide you and get you there faster. Obviously, accelerator, that's what it's meant for. So those would be my best advice when you're just getting started.
So as I thought, this time went by like crazy fast. Okay, it's just about 5, and I want to respect that time. But what I do want to offer is we are going to have a follow-up. because there's obviously a lot more things to talk about. The information you just shared, Theresa, would be great to share with a wider audience, and the resources you guys all talked about. But what I'd like to do, just to that very point, I have somebody who does this like growth of companies, and she's got this session she's going to do for free for us that I thought would be a perfect segue, called Cracking the Code to Your Company's Growth. And there's 7 stages of growth, and how you actually go from one to more than one, and then have to delegate your baby to somebody, right? And then she works with companies of 100 people or less, because that's the sweet spot in her mind in terms of growth and where she's interested in. But as we kind of start to wrap up, I would like to offer 2 things. I'd like to ask all of you each to respond with who, if you can name one person, I don't, maybe that's not fair to just name one. Like, who is your key mentor, and what's your key takeaway from, what you've learned along the way from that person and what they taught you? Starting with Theresa. I could go alphabetical, did not put you on the spot.
Sorry about that. I hit some buttons and lost myself. I guess for me, I haven't really had a clear mentor, but there's been just quite a few of them just along the way. And some of them have been when I've worked for different companies. One of them was a project geologist that I worked with when I was working for a mining exploration company. And just her thought approach, because she was managing a lot of projects, and how to show up as a woman, not to take a back seat. She was just definitely promoting, standing up and using your voice when you need to. And so Catherine was my mentor there. And I've just taken a lot of that into what I do now.
Fantastic. Thank you. Addie.
I think I have too many mentors to name, which I consider myself very fortunate about that. I would say like Annette has been one of them for me. I go to her all the time. And so as Juan from the HE department. And so there's just a lot of people that I think have influenced my life in different ways and kind of directed me to the path that I'm at. And so I would say just like, don't take for granted the people in your life, because you don't know who is going to be a mentor to you. And I guess without that question, I don't know if I would have thought of them as mentors, but looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, they definitely are. So that's me.
That's great. How about you, Sue? You're muted though now.
I've definitely had a lot of great mentors in my life, and they change over time depending on what I'm doing. And, at Mines, when I was at NIST, the Mines professors that got me to come to Mines was a big one. And then in green building, I hooked on to Brian Dunbar at CSU, and then I served on his board for 10 years. And so those are very memorable relationships for me. And
super. And how about you, Jackie?
Yeah, and I'll echo Sue's comments on, having many mentors and the evolution of those mentors and how they provide advice to you over time. But one for me, certainly what kind of stoked the flames for me to get started was my boss at the last company I worked for before starting out on my own. Certainly, I've always been the kind of person that, would say, ask why a million times. Matter of fact, my parents probably got annoyed by it, but always seeking explanation. And so this gentleman was the first person to actually begin to answer those questions, or at least entertain a why, even if he didn't agree, try and stoke a conversation. And then also just his creativity with respect to our industry was very inspiring. And so, actually just even talked to him the other day, so still have a relationship with him to this day. And so just a very, fostering individual in terms of innovation and change.
That's fantastic. Well, I like to think of our mentors as a board of directors, right? We don't just have one mentor. It's like you have mentors that really makes up your board of directors. And so in closing, I would like to say 2 things. One, thank you all for being here. Thank you to the panelists. That's all one thing. And the second thing is, if you have mentors that have helped you along the way, make sure they know. Let them know that what impact they had on your life. And we will have a follow-up session with you. There's a lot of really good information in the chat. Julie's going to put up a final slide that's got specific contact detail information for our panelists today. So I encourage you to keep the conversation going, ask the questions, and we'll follow up on a second, we'll call it Entrepreneurial Panel 2 or whatever we call it. But again, thank you all for being here tonight. It's been a great informative session for me. I learned a ton. And I wish you all a Merry Christmas, and we will get together again in the next semester.